Architectural Builder Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
AB Supply, this is Richard.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Good. Yourself, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's funny, the last 2 weeks when I've called you, my headset's disconnected. Funniest thing. Just coincidence. You know,
Yeah.
it showed me it was blinking, but it's just kind of funny. At least it didn't take me 5 minutes to figure it out this week.
Yeah, right on. Hey, let's take a look at something here. It's funny you say that because I am having a computer problem as well. So while I rectify that, what of your Dorma closer have any questions on anything?
Not really. I mean, we covered it fairly thorough yesterday. I mean, we went over, the price list and, the catalog and saw everything that was included, so much so that when Mary followed up, why weren't these listed on the acknowledgement, I was able to send a cut sheet from the, catalog and say, according to here, it's included in the package. So, I think it was actually very beneficial. I mean, granted, I don't always get served up orders like that, from you or a customer where it's that clear, where they know exactly what they want. I didn't have to prod. But, it actually made perfect sense, based on what they want, how the price list is laid out, and how the order, it worked out very well.
What's really nice is the fact that for the client you were able to say, no. I got you so covered. It seems like I've made a mistake. I'm that good at what I do.
Exactly. That was the type of reinforcement I like getting. It's like, oh no, I know exactly what's going on here. I know why those aren't listed because they're listed here. So that's great.
Yeah. So, I think let's do a little deeper dive into it, because today's deeper dive wouldn't involve the quick moving through the work that we were doing yesterday. I was just trying to toss a grenade in your lap and then run for the bunker. So what's really great about Dorma and either their pivot sets or their floor closers is the way that they list everything. And Dorma does an exceptional job at making it a lot easier. So the BTS80 is their standard floor closer, and you'll see the BTS80s in the front of the Apple Store. Those Herculite doors. Herculite's a term for all glass doors. They've got these there, and Dorma is everywhere. Dorma is they're not a North American company, or not owned by a North American company. So if you're on a cruise boat or if you're in Europe, you're going to see Dorma, whether it have a different little logo on the plate, but they're massive. I bet I wouldn't be surprised if what Dorma produces in a day is what Rixson produces in a month, kind of difference.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the issue, though, with a lot of manufacturers, and Dorma is a great example of it. Sometimes you need the 1-2 punch of catalog and price list. So the purpose of today is to give you a level of comfort that when someone calls you for a floor closer, you're comfortable saying, okay. Today you won't walk away being comfortable as much with Rixson, but when someone calls you for a floor closer, you'll be more comfortable with Dorma, and you'll not shy away from saying, yeah, let's have that conversation about a floor closer. So at the end of the day, you can read the catalog, and it's important to do that so that when you look at the how to order, those additional things are explained. So it's as we said yesterday, it's always a BTS80, but then you have the ARM package, and we're going to get to that in a moment. You have the spring size, and the spring size is important because it's right here. Don't deviate. Meaning, if your client has a problem with a door based on what you've specified, if you've improvised, if you've run an audible, the rope around your neck is you didn't follow the published guidelines. So stick to it. These guys have tested this stuff. So if you're doing an exterior door, that is this door range, yeah, they want to see a size 4. Or in this case, size, yeah.
Exterior versus interior are different sizes. Why is that?
Well, you're going to have different pressures in the building. So the exterior door, the exterior doors are dealing with an air pressure differential that is most definitely different than what you'd see on the inside of a door. And there's a door called a balanced door. You for sure have walked through these in your life. And what the balanced door does, it's here's an image. C.R. Lawrence makes them. Other people make them. Crane may make them. I'm not sure. Well, Ellison Brown's obviously does. So what happens with a balanced door is when that door is in the closed position, as it is here, the door is closed, and you can kind of tell that there's something weird here. As soon as you start to crack the door open, air immediately begins moving through here, most likely in, to balance the forces on both sides of the door, allowing the door to behave more naturally. So an exterior door has equipment running. Equipment is going to require a CFM. It's pulling air from everywhere. Every leaking hole in a building, it's sucking air from. So when a door comes to close and then slams closed, yeah, I mean the control device is not tuned properly, but it's also because the air pressure that the inside of the building is sucking that door closed. So balanced doors are easier to actually walk up to and push or pull open because they're right away serving to balance that. So what they're saying in the regard of why you need a bigger spring, it is because, and we'll go back to our catalog, you'll notice that an exterior door is they're gonna say, give us, I'm saying it backwards. When you've got the range for exterior door widths is smaller vis-a-vis the spring size. So you can get away with a wider door on the interior than you can on the exterior when you're using a size 4 because there's less air pressure and you can get away with more surface area up to a 4-foot door.
I don't think I would have guessed that without you, without this conversation, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and the problem that you get is in exterior applications that have to be handicap compliant, meaning 5 pounds of force to open the door. The problem with 5 pounds of force is, in the immortal words of, and I'm sure I've said it in the past, I want to get it right.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Yeah, just bear with me. I'm looking for... Yeah. Oh, okay. I can't find his name. I know his first name was Gil. LCN. There was a gentleman at LCN that I asked the question of him many years ago, and he very elegantly broke it down for me and said, hey, listen, with a reduced opening force comes a reduced closing force. So when you lower the spring rate on a closer to make it handicap compliant, what you're really doing is making it less of a spring. So if you're making it easier to open, as you take that spring and you twist it clockwise and you tighten it down, well, you're storing energy, and when you let it goes back. But when you got less force to twist it down, you got less force popping back out. And that's always the problem with exterior doors, especially big buildings that will have floor closers, because there's, mid-rise, high-rise buildings. You got lots of equipment and they're sucking stuff, pulling air. So it's a classic problem. Now, what'll happen is, you may not get the door to close. I had a customer in Chicago back in the old days, and on Lakeshore Drive, which is it's not a highway, it's actually a residential street that you actually you're not permitted to take trucks on it. You'll get a ticket if you have commercial plates on Lakeshore Drive. But along Lakeshore Drive are all these mid-rise apartment condo buildings, and they call it the Windy City. As you know, you may also know it's not because it's windy in Chicago. It's because Chicago politicians were historically blowhards.
I didn't know that, Rich. I did not know that at all. You just taught me something that's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it.
So it can be windy on the lakefront. It can also be windy in Death Valley. So, I mean,
right.
So this one opening has a major on this 40-story condo building had a major problem with air being sucked through. So the installer literally put an LCN 4040 on the push side and then put one on the pull side. So you got two closers on it just to get the thing closed. So in that sort of life and that sort of world, reduced opening forces to be ADA compliant are not going to be compatible with a door actually closing and latching. So what'll happen is you may get approval from the authority having jurisdiction to go with the proper size spring, so that it closes and latches, and that is for ADA compliance. Now, if you've got an ADA closer that happens to be a fire-rated door and you're not latching because it's an ADA closer, NFPA 80 trumps ADA, meaning fire safety trumps everything else. Right. So you are not permitted to use a handicap-compliant cylinder if it's not getting the job done to get the door closed and latched. So you got to be mindful of that. It's tricky with this stuff, and there is no elder wand that you can just say a spell and it's all fixed, because it's literally just spring. It's a spring. So it's really, really ancient technology. All right, so when it comes to the spring size, that's just reading and observing what the manufacturer publishes. That's how you keep the rope off your neck. Hey, these guys are been in business. They're hardware manufacturers. They've tested this stuff. Now, I want to skip over the package, this column, because we'll get to it. The spindles. Now, this is just a long, giant column of 5 or 6 digit part numbers for the spindle. And here they are. Now, these are the part numbers that is in the how to order. What's really important about that is you need to provide the length of spindle appropriate for your clearance dimension. And that is the Y dimension here, clearance. The bottom of the door or the top of whatever. I'm sorry. They don't define clearance here, actually. They're defining possibly undercut. The bottom line is, what is the bottom line? Yeah, okay, you're fine. This is actually clearance. X is clearance. Bottom of the door to the top of the sill, whatever is there that you're installed on top of. In this case, what you're seeing here is the body of the closer and its thin little finish plate over it. So you're not measuring that. Now, why would you need different spindle lengths?
Different clearance?
Exactly.
Okay.
No, it is. You're probably a decade younger than me, but it's probably true you've seen shag carpeting. So what happens is with shag carpeting, and then all of a sudden the new generation comes in and buys the 50-year-old house, and like, oh boy, you know what's underneath this shag carpeting? Beautiful, solid red oak floors. Well, they pull the shag up, and it's beautiful, and they come in and they sand it, and they fill it, and they make it gorgeous, and it looks, chef's kiss. Well, the problem is the undercut on the doors. You could probably now drive the monster truck from Speed Racer over it. So, oh yeah, right? Are you a Speed Racer fan?
No, I'm not.
Monster car? It's monster car. Yes, you are, Cory. Don't you dare.
I probably am, but I don't remember the reference. I know Speed Racer.
Yeah, well, that's my next tattoo, Speed Racer. That's for sure. Yeah, the monster truck. So
I'm not familiar with the monster truck and Speed Racer. That's hilarious. I only know the car. So obviously I'm not you there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would run home in the 70s to watch it on Channel 44. Obviously rerun because that cartoon was from the 60s. But I'm thinking this. Cory, you'd have to channel your inner Rich because it's just 1977 running home. What did you have on TV? You had Speed Racer, you had King Kong, you had Ultraman, you had Godzilla, and that's like at 3:30, man. You know what I mean? Life is good back then. So life is good today, but life was good back then as well. So the point of the matter is you're going to have a really huge undercut when you pull that up. So you very likely are going to inherit a problem where you need a longer spindle because you can take a 7-foot door and let's just say you can cut it down to 83.5. But can you take an 83.5-inch door and cut it down to 84-inch? No. So you're stuck. If your clearance is something you can't change without changing the door, you go with a longer spindle. Now, what if you had concrete in a grocery store in the back and they were pouring epoxy flooring over everything, or a food processing plant? Then you're going to need a longer spindle because where you're installing the closer body, that dimension is going to change when they come in and do the pour. And what they'll do is they'll have a mortar pan for that. And I don't know if they show a mortar pan here. That's a bit of a sidetrack, but let's just sidetrack. So over the closer body, if we imagine this plate is gone, and we look at, I don't have it open yet. If we imagine the floor plate is gone, and we look at BTS80, yeah. All right, let's do this. We should be doing this anyway. Products. Let's call that something else.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
As you're looking there, I'm just going to comment, although I hadn't heard Dorma, how they were kind of international and, everywhere, I have noticed on occasion trucks that drive around with the name Dorma Kaba on them, and the fact that a manufacturer has service technicians does say something to how big of a company they are. That's one of the surprises I've noticed, actually.
Yeah, well, you got all these guys, your Allegiant, your Assa Abloy, everybody fighting for the big skyscrapers that they all want to build, because those are and I probably have said it, those are the geese that lay the golden egg, because they'll get service work out ad infinitum. So here are the installation instructions for a BTS80, and Ellis and I are installing floor closers at the new place pretty soon. He's already put one in, but long story short, break out the concrete, whip up some mortar, get the body placed where it needs to be placed with a plumb bob, and you're good. So the bottom line is, in that food processing facility, you might have to come over this with a really easy to clean floor. So what they do is they'll take a mortar pan. It's basically think of a frying pan that's rectangular shaped, that might be a 1/2 inch tall, and they'll place that over it because the flooring will go right into it. The point of that is you need a longer spindle, because now this dimension from where your door is to where the floor is now changed. So this needs to go up a commensurate length. And what's nice about Dorma is their spindles are interchangeable, whereas with Rixson, that's not the case. If you need an extended bottom spindle because of a flooring condition, you need to order it from the factory. But with Dorma, you're literally just saying, yep, swap out my spindle, and you're now already familiar with where that is in the price list or in the how to order. You're already familiar with it. And you just scroll to the table and you look at what your clearance is, and you know how to now define your part number, which we'll get to. Now, one thing I wanted to mention about this is you've got spindle lengths. You also have preload spindle.
Yeah,
In a door with a door closer, that door is going to close to 0 degree. It's going to make contact with the stop, and it's going to stop swinging closed. In your mind's eye, if you were to take that same opening and rip the stops off, you'll note that when the door closes, it will go to 0 and then go like to -3. It'll swing back into the opening. That's preload, and that's intentional. So when you look at a floor closer body like Rixson, the spindle is actually not at 0 degree. It's canted, and which makes them handed. It's canted so that there's pressure constantly pushing from the face of the door to the face of the stop, constantly pushing against it. And that's to give you a nice seal. Like the closer that Ellis and I just installed, the Rixson 27-180 hold open. It holds open at 180 degrees, but when you let it close, it goes to 0 and then keeps swinging into the opening. That's the preload. So you need a different spindle than that for a preload condition. And what they're going to really end up doing is taking this spindle. Imagine in your mind's eye now that it's actually at an angle of like 3 degrees. The bottom of it is machined straight along the axis of the body, but the top of it is now on an angle. And that will give you the preload without changing the closer.
yeah.
So exterior doors, yeah, put a preload on it. You want it tight. You want it tight against the
That was going to be my follow-up.
Yeah.
If it ties into the exterior interior, the pressure and whatnot, and if maybe that's the application for it. So awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, that's just what you're going to get. So spindle. Okay, now the hand, that's obvious. Door closers, you know that there are 4 ways to swing a door. You may not. We've discussed it, so you know there's 4 ways. But when it comes to door closers, you only call them left hand or right hand. If it's an outswing, if it's a right hand reverse, you're going to order it as a left hand. That's just how it is. You don't. I call them out right hand reverse, but the factory doesn't like that because they don't always know it's a left hand. Anyway, so. And it's also really important, as we discussed yesterday, to specify your screws so they know what to put in there. Meaning, it's not only that the factory knows what to put in there. It's when you specify the long tail part number like we did yesterday, floor closer, BTS80 by D, by 3, by 74010, by left hand, by AMS your client asked for, by I think we put, I don't think we put anything else into it, but when you fill it out this way, this is also your love letter to the installer that says, hey, pal, it's AMS. So if they happen to put wood screws in there, don't use those. Use these. And that's literally why you do it so the factory knows what to do, but you're doing it because you're going to hand a door closer box to someone that may have a lot of experience and someone who has 0 experience, and you're going to hand them the hardware set. And your part number, your long tail part number, will say whatever, W2. It's a wood door, wood floor. And this is where it obligates the guy to put it in according to the way that the hardware set calls it. And that's why it's so important.
Okay.
Because you're saying, don't call me if you use the wood screws. My hardware set says AMS. Don't call me if
the
you
blueprint.
use screws. No. That doesn't work. You're assuming the architect put it right, but you as the hardware expert, you take ownership of it.
Right. No, I mean, like how to build the part number, that is kind of the blueprint. That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Forgive me. Yes, you're exactly right. Yeah, it's right. Exactly. That's exactly right. The construction documents are based on pardon me, the submittals are based on the construction documents, so the blueprints, the specifications, but you as the hardware guy comes in and will take the hardware set and put it into the proper lingo for the factory and for your submittals. And that submittal goes to the architect, to the GC, and to the installer. They have a copy of it, and they're installing it the way you wrote it.
Right.
So when I say follow what the factory says, yeah, you follow what they say because everybody else is following what you wrote. And when it comes to something like fastener or hand, hey, why does my door not open? Well, I have no idea. You had one left hand and one right hand. Did you install the right closer on the right hole? So that's where you put this. And it's not making fun of the installer who makes mistakes, because who doesn't? But it's also just the proper chain of custody over the intellectual aspect, the mental aspect of what we're doing, getting it right.
Yeah.
So
it tells the full story, and it's approachable from the beginning and the end. It can be approached that way. So that's cool. Like the explanation.
And your part number is immutable. It can't be changed. It's an NFT. It's permanent. It's on the blockchain.
Right.
You can't do anything to it. It is what it is. It's either complete and correct or it's less than that. So when it comes to the packages, the one column we didn't get to, Dorma does an okie dokie job, but it doesn't really tell you everything, as we discovered yesterday. And yesterday was, is the top pivot and the bottom arm included? Well, they don't tell you flat out here that they are or they are not. You did a D package, and a D package tells me it's 3/4 offset. As we discussed previously in pivots, the offset is the dimension from the face of the door to the center line of to the vertical axis of pivot, which is that imaginary line right there. It may also be about 3/4 from the jamb. That's purely coincidental. Okay, but they're measuring the face of the door to the vertical axis of pivoting, because you can also make that, as you recall from pivots, 1.5 inches. And that's a different conversation, but you might need more room here to get around something. But while this is a great starting point to tell you what package you need in that column, it doesn't give me, at least, the confidence to know what I'm doing. And that's where the price list comes in. So I'm going to fire up the price list, and we're going to look at it quickly. It was that one. BTS80. And that's why I love Dorma, because someone called, I need this. Okay, no problem. I don't have it memorized, but I know where to find it. And this is where I find it. And the price list is the bee's knees on this. So you were doing a BTS80D. You were doing a BTS80, and you see now how their platform is modular. You have a floor closer body, and onto that you can slap different spindles, 2 different types, and then different lengths. You can slap onto it different bottom arms for different applications. You can make it center hung. You can make it offset. And what really differentiates that is what hardware you use and where you install the closer body. So back to that, if we were going to install this as center hung, bear with me. Yeah. I just happen to be sentimental for Rickson because, I was doing Rickson long before Dorma was even a twinkle in my daddy's eye. So this would be center hung, where that arm is going to fit over the spindle here. But if you're doing offset like you did yesterday, what you're literally doing is taking where you place the floor closer body. This is center hung. So if you're going to do offset, you got to take this body and you got to move it over so that the door is going to sit here. That means this whole gizmo has got to be out here. So you literally are going to move it in the opening on the floor out here. So it's modular. Same body, just depends on where you place it, center hung, offset, whatever it is. Then you can swap out your floor plates, swap out your spindles, swap out your arm packages, and you have the ability to really hit a lot of different applications with just one platform. So the BTS80D, so it's a little clunky as far as I'm concerned in terms of looking at this, but this is what we're looking at here. So they're saying it's a 3/4 offset, single acting wood, steel, or aluminum door and frame. Now, the closer bodies are inherently double acting. But if you add a stop to the frame, guess what? The door is not going to swing in the opposite direction. So that closer body can swing open 90 and close 90, so back and forth like a cafe door. But when you add the single acting hardware pack to it, you won't double act. So when you're doing a D package, you're going to get if you just specify BTS80D, you're going to get a size 4 body. You got to double check and make sure that's correct. Then you're going to get these other gizmos here. And I don't have them memorized, but let's look at the 74010 first back in the product catalog.
Maybe the spindle,
which is here.
Yeah, 3/4 inch.
Yeah, definitely the spindle. So when I do a search for 74010, it's going to be the standard, the STD spindle. The next part number was the 7410, and that was the cover plate. Yeah, you need to have a cover plate. Now, you don't need to have a cover plate if you're making your own, or if you're going to run your threshold over it and prep your threshold, but that is such a common scenario that right below where we were working, they literally have it listed LFP, less floor plate. So you'll get the entire closer except the floor plate and the screws to attach it to the body, and you'll take that deduct. So that's your floor plate. And what are we going to deal with on these two? Well, we can cheat. We know it's the top pivot, and we also know that it's going to be your arm. So let's search for the 75323 and see what that is. Okay, well we're going to get to this in a moment. That is your bottom arm. Where is this all at? LM, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for some reason in the BTS80, they don't give you... Yeah, they do. It's here. So in the BTS application part of the catalog, which I didn't intend to jump to just yet, it was the coup de grace, but... so anyway, the 75323 was the bottom arm, and then the 75120 would be the top pivot, is what it would be. So 75120... Yeah, that's the top pivot. So that concludes, if you order this and you give them a hand and you give them a finish, this is what's going to be in the box. If you want to run an audible, then you do so. You use the how to order and you tweak it. But your client listed 2 left-hand BTS80Ds, 2 right-hand BTS80Ds, and they gave you a finish. But then they gave you 2 additional line items of the bottom arm and the top pivot. So the question becomes okay, well, the closer bodies include those parts, but they listed them separately. So the question is, hey, wait a minute, you're already getting those parts when you order the complete closer, the complete package. Do you want more of those? And if yes, why would you need those? Oh, I didn't realize those were included. Oh, no, I don't need those. You can strike those lines off the order. And what happens if you're going to be pedantic about it and then literally send them what they asked for? They're going to say, what the hell did you send me all this extra stuff for? So you being the professional, it's your job as the professional to get to the heart of what they actually want. And that's what you said initially. I discovered that what they actually needed isn't what they said. Okay? And you add all those extra parts, you're really increasing the cost. And then they're going to want to return it, and you're going to eat it. And then the only other thing that they had listed there was the intermediate pivots, and we discussed how doors up to 60 inch are going to have 2 hinges. Doors above 60 and up to 90 inch, you add 1 hinge. For every 30 inch thereafter, you add an extra hinge. Up to 120, you're going to add a second one. Up to 150, you'll add a third. You don't see doors 12 foot tall, but they do exist. Obviously, you go to a wedding at a big banquet hall, you'll see really tall doors.
Just a little. There's a restaurant in town that has probably 12 or I haven't measured, but 12 to 15 foot tall doors. Look like they're solid wood, like 4 or 5 inches thick. And I just see the floor. Yeah, I mean it's heavy. Like my son can't open it. It takes probably 40 pounds of force to manually open it almost. Maybe less than that, probably closer to 25. But still, I keep looking at the pivots, and it's very interesting when you see different types of hardware for those different types of doors that just are not that common. It's kind of cool.
They're really not common, and that's what makes them fun, because when let's say that restaurant called you up and said, Cory, my floor closer's failing, come help me out. Well, it forces you to learn about it, and it's not the same old, fusible link. Boring.
Right.
Who cares? Boring. So later in the catalog, the BTS section, they've got, Dorma has the BTS75 and the BTS80, and of the BTS80 EMB as well, which is sequenced closers. But what I like about this section of the catalog is, okay, what package do I need? It's a wood door and a steel frame. Well, in this case, it's an aluminum door and an aluminum frame. So they're going to tell you, you're going to use the 80 the A package. And in the A package, this is what you're going to get. These are the parts. So they do a really good job at telling you, describing to you the parts, but also when you look at the picture, don't read anything. Does that look like wood to you? Nope. To me, it looks like aluminum, because it does look like aluminum. So as you scroll through the different packages, now the next letter in the alphabet is B. Here's our B applications. That to me looks like a steel frame with a wood door. Wood door or steel door, and wood or steel frame. And that would be important when it comes to specifying the proper fasteners. Machine screws don't work well in wood. That's double acting. Well, it could be single acting as well if you added a stop, but double acting would be single acting. Now you have an offset hung style, and they're telling you, you can look at this. Yeah, that's wood, and that's a steel frame. And that's what's nice about this, because you say, well, what's the composition of the door and frame? Well, it's a wood door, and we're putting it in a steel frame. Okay, you know where to find it, and then all you got to do is kind of drill down. Is it a C, CE, or CF? What's the difference between the two? 1.5 offset, and then 20 or a minute, or up to 3 hour. So Dorma makes it really easy to understand this stuff. Do you have to dig and find it? Yes. But the more you dig and find it, the faster you'll find it. They can do independently hung as well, and that's where you have a floor closer that the arm and the track are not carrying any of the weight. It's the hinges. That's independently hung. And those exist. Those definitely exist.
What's the application for that?
The application would be where, quite frankly, just simply hinges are being used to hang the door. Hinges are being used to hang the door. They want so an application for this would be, this is going to be a center hung application where the closer body is underneath the door, but they are using hinges to hang it in such a way where the hinge is going to bear the weight. The last time I did this, it was a situation of, something to do with the application. Why would I want independently hung over something otherwise? I'm gonna have to table that answer to get a proper answer. There's a reason for it.
It just seems like, my belief has been, one of the reasons you have a floor closer is to support the weight of the door.
Yeah, no doubt. It does seem counterintuitive to be independently hung, even if you used a series of intermediate pivots. independent. Sorry. Yeah, there it is. Independently hung applications. Yeah, that that could be an application where um they might just want to use continuous hinges. Continuous hinges are going to give you a lifetime warranty on the hinge. They give you a lifetime building warranty on the hinge. So they may just someone may want to use independently hung because the means of hanging the door, they don't want it to be the floor closer body itself.
I mean, it almost seems like, what you need in a pinch, like, because you've already bought hinges and or you've already bought a closer and you gotta make it work. It's it's kind of weird for me to get my head around the actual use outside of having to make existing hardware work.
Yeah, I can definitely see the advantage of letting an auxiliary piece of hardware carry the weight and just let the closer focus on closing it, and having the weight borne by something else, butt hinges or a continuous hinge. Pocket pivots, Dorma makes pocket pivots. Those are a very different deep dive that I think we've touched on. So it literally could be an application where you don't want the closer to actually hang the thing, because you could argue that 1,000-pound door being hung, the weight of the door and the requirement of the closer to successfully close the door is compromised versus an application where you take a closer and then you use a hanging device rated for the weight of the door. So the closer would be more capable at closing the door if it wasn't doing the job of actually holding up 1,000 pounds.
Right.
And 1,000 pounds most definitely sounds ridiculous. It's just, at the end of the day, they're not ridiculous. They're common.
Right.
L27s, 1,500 pounds. I've got a pivot behind my desk that's a 3,000-pound pivot.
Wow.
Now, the downside, so for right now, the answer is going to be when you want the door to be hung on its own independent means of hanging the door, for possibly the reason that the closer will operate more efficiently when all I'm doing is closing, not actually having to carry and close.
Right.
So I'll research that and we'll update that as we go along. Okay. But what you'll notice is the BTS80, that's on 451, BTS80. Let's take a look. This will be important and get us right near the end here. What is it rated for in terms of weight? Yeah, you got to be really, really careful when they don't tell you how heavy of a door it'll handle. Now, I find it hard to believe that it's not here, but something tells me, I've actually asked Dorma about this in the past. So the question becomes is, if you're hanging, a 600-pound door, that's not uncommon. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there, 660. There it is.
There it is. Yep. So you're going to do a door that's heavier than that, you're not using Dorma. So that's important to know about your choice of using Dorma as well.
Okay.
Because you may not be able to use it. But
even if it's independently hung, where you actually hang it?
Well, that's so funny you say that. Yeah, that's awesome. Because what do you do then? Hey, Dorma, you're rated to 660 pounds, but what if I hang this on a Hager Roton that's rated for 1,000 pounds, where I've got an 800-pound door? How do you feel about that, Dorma? How do you feel? and you get a blessing from them. That literally could be a reason to go independently hung. My door's 800 pounds, and my closer's only good for up to 660.
That makes perfect sense now. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then lead line package, and that has everything to do with just how the screw holes are drilled, so that if the lead is in the center of the door, you don't pierce through the lead. Back to our independent. So this section of the catalog is really helpful to determine what arm package you need, and it all looks technical and it all looks hairy, but it's not. You and I are going really fast through this out of the respect for our mutual time. But when you get the catalog and you study it, you're like, okay, no, I can do this. Kidding me? I'm the new floor closer expert. So, and that's a great example of offset, where you got to move that body over.
Oh yeah.
A center hung, offset. Now, if that was center hung, this whole body would be moved right in the center here, and it's just where you get your chisel and hammer and start cracking the floor, where you get your jackhammer. Intermediate pivots for 1.5" offset. That's lead lined, probably right there. Is that lead lined?
Yep.
2 or 3 inch thick door. Oh yeah, right, lead lined. So what they're doing there is, if the lead is in the center of your door, it's skating right down the middle, and then the door's built like plywood. Lead's right in the middle. So that's why they would do lead lined, so you don't pierce the lead.
Does it have anything to do with the weight as well, or more so not piercing the lead?
I'm pretty sure more so the latter, so you're not piercing the lead. But you will use L lead-lined hardware on heavier stuff, certainly in the world of Rixson. So if you've got a 1,000-pound door, you're going to use an L27, because the 27 won't go past 450 pounds. And it will happen to have those much wider staggered screw holes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And then outside of that, we're at the end of the catalog. So at the end of the day, someone wants a floor closer. Rixson is really good too, and maybe next week we should go through Rixson just to be hot on the heels of the same conversation.
Okay.
Let's actually do that so we can digest the Rixson, so that if someone calls for it, you can say, okay, tell me about what your application is, if it's new, and then you select what's the best thing for the client. I happen to like the modular system of Dorma. I happen to believe in the Rixson quality, but that might be just sentimentality on my part, because it was the first pivot line I ever learned. So yeah, next week let's do Rixson, because it'll contrast how their catalog is laid out compared to this one.
Great idea. I like it. It's a lot to chew on in 2 weeks. Well, not a lot. It's a good amount, where it's digestible both times.
Yeah.
So,
and then again, in closing, in all instances, when you're not sure, you ask your coworkers, you consult the catalog, you ask your coworkers, you call technical support. That's what they're there for. That's what all three resources are there for, to get the answer, because no one was born understanding floor closers. We've all walked through them, we just didn't know it.
Right. Yeah, very true. Very true. I was never aware of them prior to working here, I had never thought about them, so kind of cool. Very cool. Unique hardware. Awesome. All right. Until next time.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program. Please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.